you talking about? I'm a Lorenzo Cooley. Like, these are just waffle and waste time. So I'm sure Wilder's keen to fight, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
That was Anthony Joshua. Should we quickly dip into what Eddie Hearn had to say and then come back to both of them?
Do we have to?
Let's do it.
Okay.
I'm glad I'm talking to you from TalkSport because you're like our last line of defence with AJ. You're the only one who's sticking the flag in the sand, you know, for him. Your local boy, and I think it's a great fight. I think it's what both guys need. I think it's what British boxing needs. I mean, let's be honest. You know, we haven't really seen a lot of big British nights over the last 12, 18 months. You know, going back to maybe, I don't know, Brooke Khan, and we had Ben Eubank last year that faded away. So I think this is a great fight. Every time we went to an opponent for AJ pre Deontay Wilder, which is virtually agreed, he just weren't up for it. You know, it was like Wallin, Caballero, you know, and he was just like, what about Dillian White? And that's a great fight. That's a fight I can get up for. And you know, Dillian's going to be dangerous in this fight. Two guys that have everything on the line, really. And I think it's going to be a very, very tense, tight, violent affair.
Okay,
It's interesting. I mean, I've just got to get this bit in first.
Okay.
It's interesting that he talks about the only person that defends him at TalkSport is Spencer Oliver, when Eddie is constantly trying to get on this show, begged and pleaded to come and do an interview on this show about the observations that I made about him. He's now doing the same thing about coming on here to promote the White AJ fight. So it's absolute nonsense. It's just a case of victimhood and redirection from some of the constructive observations that are made about fighters. And they don't like it.
It's quite interesting.
They don't like it.
Clearly, the show's making an impact because it's being talked about by one of the biggest boxers in world boxing and the biggest promoter in world boxing right now. And the fact is,
well, I'll tell you why, Sam, was because myself and Jim decided to have a boxing hour on Thursday, which takes it beyond the boxing world into the mainstream media, gives it more attention than it gets in its own right, and gets 1.5 million listeners. So what they should actually be saying is, thank you very much, lads, for coming on and allowing our sport to be promoted through your show.
Which is what Rob said. He said, I'm afraid this shows once again how weak mentally AJ is. Tyson Fury gets stick, and rightly so. This doesn't impact him at all, hence why he's one of the best of his era. Same with Wilder, hence these guys are a level above AJ, I'm afraid. Thank God for TalkSport, or else we just have these YouTube channels who simply believe what they are told, don't challenge anyone, and feed the narrative of some of the promoters.
Yeah, people like Kugan Kessis running around asking every single question that people want to answer, you know, and then you get Matchroom's publicist, IFL, being able to say precisely what they want. Look, let's be clear. Anthony Joshua has done wonderful, wonderful things for British boxing. In a high tide, all boats rise high, and he's been that high tide economically. He's not been held to any different standards than other people have. No, certainly not by me, if his accusations about me or Jim or anyone else, whether it's Gareth A. Davis or whoever else is taking a swipe at. Right? The bottom line is that all people have done is looked at his body of work and made observations about it. And they've looked at Fury's body of work and made observations. So when someone like me turns around and goes, I'll leave off that, you know, by the way, the same Dillian White that's now fighting Anthony Joshua that Tyson Fury destroyed this time last year or a little bit earlier. When Tyson Fury puts in an inauspicious performance against Otto Wallin, gets criticised. When he fights a pup of a fight against Derek Chisora, he gets criticised. Now they're potentially talking about the Ngannou fight, gets told by people like me, Jesus Christ, why would the WBC champion of the world be fighting that particular fight? All of those criticisms, right? But when someone says, somebody that lost his heavyweight championship of the world to the Pillsbury Doughboy, then goes and loses to a cruiserweight, hang on a second, that's kind of not where we would expect Anthony Joshua to be. That's an unfair attack.
Well, it's interesting.
I mean, this is the former heavyweight champion of the world. He should not be getting the WBC belt. He should be getting the whining BC belt. Because it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
He talks about haters and people who want me to do better. There are two people, he said there are two categories, haters and people that want me to do better. Now, forget the haters, because at the end of the day, you're never going to convert us. But I think all of us as British boxing fans, people who watch boxing on a regular basis, of course we want him to do better.
Of course we do.
Of course we want him to be a success. Jerome Franklin, the last fight that he had, is that right? He came on talking to us about the fact that he had to knock him out. The narrative before the fight was, it's got to be a big knockout from Anthony Joshua.
To be fair, I don't think Anthony said that himself. I think that was said about him.
He said he wanted a big performance, didn't he?
He was
beating
that up. But the bottom line is the narrative that was spun around him, spun around by Eddie, spun around by everybody else, and to some extent spun around by propositions like ours, that there needed to be a reaction. The Anthony Joshua express train was becoming derailed, and it needed to be an example of him getting back to basics. What the bleeding hell is critical about that? There are people, I remember sitting in this conversation with me and Eddie Hearn over this stupid set to for an hour, orchestrated by DAZN and TalkSport to have this discussion about what I said about Eddie. And people come off air and said, well, all the people like me said, oh, Simon Jordan won that conversation. All the people like Eddie said, Eddie Hearn won that conversation. The bottom line is, if people don't like Anthony Joshua, they'll not like anything he does. And if they don't like Tyson Fury, they'll not like anything else he does.
But most people really in the world of
But boxing, they're so fragile, Sam. They get all bent out of shape, and they all get their knickers in a twist, and it's the worst thing in the world for someone like me to collide with them, because I couldn't give a monkey's what they think of me. I don't need their interviews. I don't need a relationship with Eddie Hearn. I couldn't care less if I never saw him again. I have no interest in prostituting myself, so I say to these guys what other people won't want to say. Some people think I'm being disrespectful. No, I'm not. I'm just thinking, I don't care. I'm going to ask you a question. What's the point of blowing smoke at someone's backside? If you think the Jermaine Franklin fight wasn't good enough from Anthony Joshua, why don't you say to him, geez, Anthony, I thought you were going to do a little bit more than that and keep out of range. He can then come back and say, well, hold on a second, you, blah, 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 blah. And then you've got a proper, insightful conversation, rather than this seeming necessity from all these sycophantic, saccharine nitwits in the YouTube world that sit in front of these people worried about the next interview. Ask these guys proper questions. They're supposed to be pugilists. They're supposed to be characters, substantial people that can push back against people that don't have informed views.
Do you know
it's
what we
nonsense.
want?
And actually whining about TalkSport agenda. Oh, for God's sakes, man.
Yeah, exactly.
For
We've got the live
God's
fight on the
sakes.
12th of August. The reason for that is
It's a
because
great
we
fight.
want to see a great fight between two British boxers. And actually, if Anthony Joshua does well, we'll be the first to sit there and say it was a terrific performance. We got very excited the night that he won live on TalkSport against Vitaly Klitschko. That was here. We followed his career.
But also, when you're the biggest guy in the room, you're going to get the most attention. There's only one thing why I see people talking about you. It's people not talking about you. Anthony, you've got an express train of huge economic benefits that have come off the back of the positioning, both of your ability to communicate through the media and also because of some of your achievements. With that comes people observing on you. Grow up. Be a man. Why would you pick out a particular platform that gives you an enormous audience, to give the boxing world an enormous audience, and say, oh, the only person that sticks up for me is Spencer. And by the way, Spencer, no, you don't.
Well, listen, we can't wait for the fight. 12th of August, it's live on TalkSport. And if you didn't see the press conference yesterday, it is available on the TalkSport YouTube boxing channel, which is all over all of this. Again, giving these guys a platform to speak, but being held to account as well, because that's what we do on TalkSport.
White